And looks like we
just got a
are
notice on
live on YouTube. All right. We are getting ready here for episode 70. I got Scott via Mimo Live out in Florida. James, one of our big supporters in the studio tonight. Appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure, man.
All right. Scott, you in? You in? Can you hear us?
Sun's out, guns out.
I can hear you guys. I can hear you guys. I can't hear you.
All right. Yeah, your audio's choppy. We'll try to make it through. We'll make do. But here we go. We're going live. What's up, Birdland BSers? It's Tuesday, November 6th, and this is episode 70. Today on the show, the Ravens dropped their third straight, what changes are coming in the future, and an update on Terps football. Stay tuned.
It's that time, so let's take it to the Birdland. That Baltimore home flavor is coming firsthand. Fred, Scott, and Ryan, tell them the word, man. Mixing a little BS to make it work, man. Sports, they got it. On excitement, the topic. Make sure when they toss you the ball, you don't drop it. With all that swag, you're gonna listen regardless. Here comes the pitch, so it's time to get it started. It's Birdland BS.
What's up, Birdland BSers? Fred, Scott, and James Coruzzi joining us in the studio today. Appreciate you being on the show, brother.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad to be on.
Yeah. Scott is in Florida trying to get on the show. He's been in and out with internet connection issues, so we're going to try to make do. Scott will kind of pop in as he can, as his internet connection allows.
He's flow rider.
Yeah, man. So this is going to be a tough one to get through. This is has not been a good week in Birdland. Got a lot of things to kind of break down, a lot of things to discuss. We'll get into it. Hopefully, Scott will pick up here in a second. But before we get into anything, this week's episode is brought to you by John Scheffenacher of Cummings & Co. Realtors. Are you looking to buy or sell your home? Do you want someone you can trust to go to bat for you? Go see our guy John Scheffenacher over at Cummings & Co. Realtors. John's been in the business for 4 years now and is dedicated to getting you the best deal possible. He's always willing to take your call and be available for you anytime, day or night. For you Birdland fans out there, you may know him as a sunglass guy sitting behind the dugout at Camden Yards. So give John a call today, 443-604-6298. Normally, this is where Scott would chime in with his story about John, but I'll give you a little background. For you guys that have been listening, Scott has used John personally in the past. Actually, John was Scott's realtor when he was looking to buy his home. John went out of his way in a big way for Scott. I mean, even while he was on vacation, he showed this guy the home that he eventually bought. And man, this guy is all about his clients. He does all kinds of events. He does things like delivering pies during the holidays, like things that, to me, it goes the extra mile. It's something that, not every realtor out there does. Most people, the realtors, the customers are just another statistic to them. John is about you, making sure that you have the best experience possible and making sure that all his clients are satisfied. So be sure to give John a call, 443-604-6298. Looks like Scott has joined us back. He's got, like I say, he's got a bad connection, but looks like he's back. So just got through the sponsor plug there, Scott, and we're going to get a little bit into this Ravens debacle against the Steelers. Ravens lose a big one, man. This was heartbreaking. Did you get a chance to watch it while you were getting traveling? Oh, did we lose you again? Lost you again. James. So before we get into this, James, tell everybody a little bit about you, a little bit about your background as far as being a Baltimore sports fan, and let everybody know a little bit inside of you.
I'm just I love baseball in general, but I'm an Oriole fan, number one. But I love baseball in general. I've been to a lot of parks on the the East Coast and Midwest. I love the Ravens, from good times and bad.
Yeah.
Right now it's a little bad, but I just love, just sports in general. But, being a local sports guy like yourself, like there's nothing more than your homegrown teams around here. So
right. Yeah, that's good, man. That's what we're looking for on these shows. People that can be realist, that can be Baltimore sports fans at heart.
Oh, I'm a realist.
Right. And I know that about you. I mean, James and I have been friends for many years. We go back to when we were in our teenage years. So known each other for a very long time. And I know that you're very passionate, but yet very real when it comes to your expectations and kind of what you want to see, moving forward with the team. It's not all blinded by orange and purple shades.
Nah, we all want to go like 16-0 and win the Super Bowl, but at the end of the day, I see it how it is. If we're good, I'll say we're good. If we're bad, I have no problem just, telling it how it is. Like some people are like, oh, we're going to win. Even if we know we have no chance, I'm a person like, yeah, we have a chance to win, but at the end of the day, if there's better competition, I'm going to take it. Like, I understand that.
Right.
So,
well, we definitely appreciate you being on the show this week, especially on such short notice and everything, and looking forward to breaking this game down. It wasn't pretty.
Nah.
Wasn't a good game. I was on the fence one way or the other, whether I was going to pick the Ravens, whether I was going to side with the Steelers. I think ultimately why I went with the Ravens in this game was I thought they'd come out a little bit more desperate. I thought we might see a little bit more drive, a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for?
Passion.
Passion, just a little bit more motivation, knowing that, you are 4-4 going into this game. It's a division game. You're at home. And this could make or break your season. There's been a lot of media attention, obviously, given to John Harbaugh and whatnot, and the importance of this game and for the season moving forward. This was a disappointing loss, to say the least.
As Joe said, he was excited about this game.
Yeah, and he said it just like that too.
Yeah,
very, very excited. Scott, did you get a chance to watch the game? I know your connection's going in and out, brother. I see you popping in and popping out, but you get a chance to watch the game while you were traveling? And did we lose you again? Can't hear you, Scott. Might have lost you again, but that's all right. So what we'll do is we'll kind of talk about, Scott and I, before he left for vacation, we talked a little bit about what we thought needed to happen in this game in order for the Ravens to really have a chance. Obviously, pressure on the quarterback has been an issue ever since the big Titans game. So when you've got a quarterback like Big Ben, you've got to put pressure on him. You got to make him feel uncomfortable, because you give him time to go through his progressions, and he's going to beat you.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to beat you. So you got to do that, and the Ravens weren't able to get to Big Ben, weren't able to disrupt him at all. So it was a big a big point of emphasis going into this game, was getting the pressure, and you failed.
Yeah. There was no subs. There was no up the middle with Williams.
Right.
He just looked like he can do whatever he wants like usual, or find a way to get something out of it.
Right.
It was just tough to watch.
Yeah, it was very tough.
It looked old and slow out there.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the story the past 3 weeks. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Can you
the other thing that we talked about was time. Yeah, we can hear you, brother. It's a little broken up, but we can actually hear you now.
I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm just gonna give you my quick opinion, and then I'm gonna hop off here because this internet connection is not holding at all down here. But this might get to see actually on property here with still quite interesting game, very relaxed Steelers fans, surprisingly. But for me, this game was the make or break. I think you guys kind of down on the hot seat. We said before this game started that they need to win the next two, and they failed. Period. Had games just biggest game the two. So my opinion, Johnson, people hate Colin. If you don't think he's you don't understand what's going on. You don't understand what has been going on for years now with the Ravens. So for me, you guys are talking about CJ Mosley. Yeah, I'm going to work on it until it's fixed. Ken Young needs to be playing back in coverage, and CJ Mosley needs to be playing up no linebacker. It's stuff of Kenny Mosley stepping back the coverage against these tight ends.
Yeah, we lost you there, Scott. Yeah, audio was really bad, brother. We're sorry about the technical difficulties there. It's apparently not a very good connection there.
Connection's on vacation.
Yeah, connection's on vacation as well. Wi-Fi took a left there. But yeah, so I think Scott was kind of hitting on some things that that we were talking about. For me, kind of one of the big things going into this game also was time of possession. Keeping the defense off the field as much as you possibly can, and the offense extending drives and continuing, to run clock. They weren't able to do that. They weren't able to convert enough on third downs. So that was a big thing. And I thought, as far as an offensive attack, that if you were going to attack the Steelers defense, the way to do it was through the air. Their corners are pretty lackluster, and they're pretty suspect. But you can't abandon the run altogether, because in the NFL, these defenses are too smart. When you become one-dimensional, it's much easier to stop an offense than if you're actually running the ball. I mean, you've got Alex Collins, who had 9 carries this game.
Yeah, that's a lot for him compared to other weeks.
Right.
But also, Lamar, I think he played a little bit more in this game than any other one.
Right. Yeah, and he did. And that's a whole nother debate that we could get into. I know Scott and I talk about it pretty much every week. It's something that neither one of us are much of a fan of.
No.
And then Harbaugh, after this game, made some comments about the Lamar package. It kind of perked my ears and kind of made me think I could kind of see the direction of this team and what it's going to happen here at the end of the year, especially if they continue on this path. If they don't turn things around, we may see more Lamar every week from here on out. It may be to the point where he ends up starting before the end of the year.
Well, he said he wanted to put more plays in for Lamar.
Right.
He talked about today,
and he talked
but
about
then he wants to run more too. So I don't know if he's including him.
Right. Well, I think the big thing that came out of today's press conference was that he made the statement that he wants to give Lamar an entire series instead of coming in for third down conversions or the occasional trick play here and there. That he wants to actually give him an entire series, which is interesting. I mean, that just goes to speak volumes of what they think of Flacco's performance so far, because it's not like Lamar's getting out there and lighting the ball, lighting it up when he goes out there. They haven't really seen much from him throwing the ball yet.
No.
I think he's thrown the ball 11 or 12 times total this year.
Correct. And also Joe just, gets to stand on the side and, twiddle his thumbs and just be average Joe out there. So
right.
And that's what it is. Just it's an average team,
Right.
There's nothing exciting about this team at all.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It's real easy as a Ravens fan to try to, stay positive with this thing and try to look at, some of the good things that have happened. I've read a lot of things online and I've listened to a lot of things through, Twitter and whatnot. And there's fans out there that want to point out the way that the defense started and that they're still ranked in the top 5 as far as defensive statistics. these games that they played and they put up these good defensive performance were against crap quarterbacks. Anytime they've gone up against anybody in the top 10 as far as quarterback play, they're a totally different defense. They look lost.
Yeah, they said Peterman, he throws one interception for every 13
Yeah, he's
passes.
like 11%
and he's in
interception percent. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous.
But like I said, we talked about like our defense is up there number one or whatever. But if this defense was playing like 5-6 years ago, it wouldn't be a number one defense.
No, and it absolutely wouldn't. The game has changed, and this defense, it's showing its age. The issues with Weddle in coverage. The issues with Mosley in coverage. Not that Mosley's more of an age thing, but Mosley is obviously he's always had issues with coverage. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
But it seems
Jimmy,
magnified.
And Jimmy, people think he's a top 10 or top 5 corner, but he can't even play 16 games, and he looks great in 4 games. If I play 4 games on something, I hope I'm better than half the people on our team anyways. So
Right.
I just don't see it. Some people think he's like the greatest thing from sliced bread, but
Right.
give me a full year.
Right. And he can't. I mean, between injuries and suspensions and everything, it's and there's another guy that you're overpaying for for the lack of performance that you get. Like you said, you can't keep him on the field for 16 games. It's bad. But in this game specifically, I mean, it was a game of poor decision making, inefficiencies, the time of possession. We talked about that going into the game. 36 minutes to the Ravens 23. That's huge. Huge difference. And I mean, when you've got a team like the Ravens, a defense like the Ravens that has some aging veterans, you can't be out on the field for that long. Like you've got to extend plays as an offense to keep your defense off the field. And then as a defense, you got to be able to stop teams on third down. Like this team was not able to get off the field on third downs. The Steelers were 10 of 16. And it's frustrating to me because, being a season ticket holder and being in the upper deck, you get a really good view of how the plays break down.
Yeah.
And you could see clear as day on third downs, all they were doing was running quick slants. They were running hitch routes. They were running bump and rub type coverage where they were, using guys to kind of pick. And the way you defend that is you get up on the line and you jam the receivers. You can jam and put your hands on the receivers within the first 5 yards, and the Ravens just did not do that in this game.
And from watching Ravens versus Steelers over the years, we all see it. They always do the dump pass.
Right.
Take 3 yards, another 3, another 4. It's a first down, and we're 10 yards back all the time. And there's no pressure. And Ben's not the youngest as he used to be, and we still didn't put any pressure on him at all.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it starts with your leader, Terrell Suggs. I mean, this guy, he hasn't had any pressure in the last 4 or 5 games. We talked about this last night when we got together. It's as he's gotten older in his years, it seems like he wears down quicker as the season goes on. I mean, he comes out of the gates
firing all cylinders,
and you're thinking, there's Terrell Suggs of old. And then he gets about 8 or 9 weeks into a season, and it starts to dwindle down. This year, it just seems that it started even earlier. I mean, we were talking like 3 weeks ago. So what is this, week 9? So what's that make that? Week 6. And he's already slowing down. He's off the field. He's on the sidelines a lot more than usual. I mean, I love Terrell Suggs and everything, but at the end of the day, if he's a liability out there, you got to get some of these younger guys involved. Where's the Tyus Bowsers that we've drafted? This goes back to, is Tyus Bowser a bust? Like what, he was a 2nd-round draft pick, I believe. Like why is he not out on the field?
And they've been talking about that throughout the week about him.
Right.
Is he a bust or what's going on? But I don't think Suggs is going to finish the year. Either he's going to get injured because he's known for that, or he just might be just tired.
Yeah. I don't know. It's there's obviously something going on. I don't know if it's a scheme thing. You know, when we first started the year off and the defense was putting up these ridiculous stats. They didn't give up any touchdowns in the second half for the first 5 weeks of the season. You thought, man, like the adjustments that it went from Dean Pease defense to, Wink Martindale's defense, you thought, wow, Wink really has an effect on this defense. I really think now looking at it is there wasn't enough tape on a Wink Martindale ran defense.
Yeah.
Now there is.
There's plenty. And
now teams are figuring it out. How do you pick this team apart? What kind of offensive line blocking schemes do you use to prevent the rush? And I haven't seen any halftime adjustments. If something's not working in the first half defensively, I haven't seen Wink making adjustments like he has in the past or like you thought was going on in the past. It seems like they come out the second half and they're just as flat as they were in the first.
Yeah, and another thing is our defense is pretty old. I think it's probably one of the oldest defense out there. But if you look at Mosley, it's been in the league, 3 years? 4?
C.J. Mosley? Yeah, he's been in the league. What draft was he in? 2015? No. 14, I think.
Okay.
So he's been in the league like 4 years.
So the last couple of weeks,
5 years.
You're having almost a 40-year-older burn him between Ben Watson and Greg Olsen.
Yep.
And you have a linebacker that wants to be paid top dollars for his position, and he can't even cover a 40-year-old man.
Right. Scott and I have this debate all the time. Is C.J. Mosley worth that kind of money? And to me, he's not.
Or if he's really injured and he's our best option. I don't know.
I mean, what we saw in the preseason and what we saw early on in the year out of Kenny Young, I thought he complemented C.J. Mosley well in the sense that he gives you that coverage style linebacker. In the dime formation, they like to use Anthony Levine a lot, and he, in the beginning of the season, was having a really good year. He was kind of, I kept saying, he was kind of the utility knife of the defense. He was, the unsung hero type thing. It's almost as if they've kind of gotten away from all that stuff because, I mean, teams are just ripping this team apart over the middle.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's every week, man.
Between C.J. Mosley and TJ Jefferson, or Tony Jefferson and Eric Weddle, all three of them hurting in coverage. Like neither one of them are good in coverage.
Nah, to me, our best guy that's been covered and he's always been suspects. It's been Carr.
Right. So Danny on YouTube is asking, any idea when Harbaugh could get fired? We're gonna save that. We're gonna talk about that. That's definitely a topic we're gonna talk about a little bit later. Let's get through the breakdown of this game here. Again, not able to make the big stops in the red zone defensively. This team, the Steelers, was 3 of 4 on touchdown attempts inside the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's awful. That's awful. Again, this is a team that prides themselves on that whole bend but don't break defense.
Yeah.
Well, they broke.
They've been broke for 3 weeks now. They've been broke.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you let a running back like James Conner, who's had, granted, he's had a really good year.
Yeah, really.
Really good year. But, I mean, he came in and had a huge game. This guy had 24 carries for 107 yards, but he also had 7 receptions for 56 yards and the 1 touchdown. They could not stop this guy. I mean, he was taking 4 and 5 yards off at a chunk.
And Weddle couldn't put a shoulder in because he just ran him over into the end zone.
Like it was nothing. I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, this defense is capable of more. Yeah. So what is the problem? Is it a scheme thing? Is it that Wink isn't making the adjustments that need to be made? It's hard to put a finger on.
But this game could be even worse because Schuster didn't even really do that much, and he had a couple drop passes.
Yeah. No, this game definitely could have been worse. Schuster had one wide open over the middle of the field that would have been a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had clear sailing if he would have caught that ball. So yeah, statistically, this could have been a worse game than what it was. It's frustrating because like I said, what this defense could potentially do. You see it in flashes, and it is the NFL. I know that the big blowout win on opening day to the Bills, it's the Bills, and everybody's beating the Bills with large numbers, but it's still an NFL team that you shut down completely. You go into Tennessee and you blank Marcus Mariota, you completely shut them out. So it's not.
I don't think he was healthy 100%.
No, and he's not. He hasn't been all year. But, I mean, you saw what they did last night to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So even with a banged-up Mariota, he's still able to put up points.
Correct.
You shut him out.
At home, too. So.
At home in Tennessee. So you know that this defense is capable of more. But like I said earlier, when you can't get off the field on third downs, that was the most frustrating thing about this game for me, was that, they were constantly, the Steelers were constantly in these 3rd down and 3, 3rd down and 4, 3rd down and 5s. And again, they're just able to bang those short passes over the middle to get their, their extra yardage and extend the drives.
And the thing that gets me is not just this game, but every time we played the Steelers, and we said it, I said it, is it'll be third down and 5 or 3rd down 4, and our guys are 10 yards off the line. Like,
right.
They don't need 10 yards to get first down. Like, move up.
Right. Press coverage when you know you're on 3rd down and short. Jam those receivers off the line. What does that do? 1, it prevents them from being able to run the quick hitch routes. 2, it gives your front 7 more time to get to Roethlisberger because the receivers aren't open yet. It takes them time to get off the corners and actually get open. It's frustrating when it's simple concept things like that it just seems to be a miss with this team. And I wonder if it's because they don't have the faith on the back end with Weddle and Jefferson in coverage, that they're afraid that, with the corners pressing up, that they're going to get beat. But at the end of the day, if you're giving them that 10-yard cushion, you're going to get beat for first downs anyway.
Yeah, but when they give the cushion and they still burn them, that's what gets me too.
Right.
So at least if you press them, you jam them up a little bit. Maybe you can get old-ass subs to, get to the quarterback a little bit, make a bad throw, but you're 10 yards off and you still get burned. It doesn't make you look any good either.
Right.
So,
no, that's absolutely true.
I don't know, but it's like all the time, and Big Ben does it to us all the time. He doesn't throw the 20-yard, 30 yards deep ball all the time. He'll take the 3. He'll take a 2-yard pass because they'll add up.
Right.
And it's all the time. It's nothing new.
Right.
It's all the time that the Steelers come and play the Ravens.
So this is a stat that kind of jumps out at me, talking about pressure on the quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. During this 3-game losing streak, they've had 13 total quarterback hits and 2 sacks. In 3 total games combined, they've had 13 quarterback hits and 2 sacks. That's since the Titans game, which in the one Titan game, they had 9 quarterback hits and 11 sacks.
And they were talking about are they better than the 2000
Yeah,
Ravens?
those people. Crazy.
You
Crazy.
should just stop it right there.
Yeah,
like,
crazy talk. It's just, it's alarming to me. I mean, they've given up 83 points, including 26th in the 4th quarter alone during this 3-game stretch. They've given up 1,125 total yards, and they've had 1 turnover.
They're number 1 defense, Fred.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, that's why you kind of gotta take some statistics and some power rankings, whatever the hell that shit even means anymore.
No.
You got to take that stuff with a grain of salt. Do the eye test. I said this earlier on the year when we were playing some of the lighter competition. Yes, statistically, this defense is ranked the number 1 defense in the league. But really, are they the best defense in the league?
No, but
No.
But also one thing is, I think the Ravens were behind 14-6 at the half.
Yeah.
Well, just to give you a little stat, Baltimore is 14-47 under Coach John Harbaugh when losing at the half.
Wow. That's
14.
just losing. So
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you're losing by
at,
1
no,
or if you're losing by 30.
Losing at the half, they're 14-47 under John Harbaugh.
Wow. Yeah, so that just tells you that this team just cannot. It's not clutch.
Nah.
They're not, they're not a team that's going to finish strong. They're a team that if they get behind early, they struggle at coming back, and that's it's part of the totality of why I think Harbaugh is just not the right fit here. And we'll get into that further a little bit later.
Yeah.
I don't want to, kind of deviate from that, but we'll definitely talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about what went wrong offensively in this game. And in all honesty with me, it starts and ends with Joe Flacco in this game. Mm-hmm. I've said this before. I'm not a Joe Flacco apologist. I've always been a Joe Flacco fan.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, he is by no means elite. He is by no means a top 10 quarterback even in this league, but I do believe that he's above average. I do believe that he is above average quarterback that can go on a run and win you a Super Bowl a la 2012. Now, that's a totally different team in 2012 than what we have now.
Well, that's why he's getting the money he is.
And that is exactly why he got them. Exactly. This game was what everybody that hates on Joe Flacco, this was their aha moment. Like, this was their, everybody was kind of looking at Flacco's stats this year and saying, oh, he's having a career year and he's doing all this and, he's finally got weapons and whatnot. But the Flacco naysayers, just wait.
He'll show up.
He'll show up, and he showed up in this game. Locking in on receivers,
but no bad
not
balls,
going
though.
through his progression. Yeah, not going through progressions. I think that was like the biggest telling point of why he did not succeed in this game. And Scott and I have talked about this a couple times this year, where I thought he had actually made strides in his ability to read a defense a little bit better early on in the year. It seemed like he was kind of going through his progressions, and I think he had more faith because he had new toys around him. He had more talent around him than he's had. He's had some good receivers, but it's always been that one guy with a couple of nobodies around him. Mm-hmm. Now he's got 3 decent receivers, and he's got 2 rookie tight ends that he's excited about, and it looked like he was having some success. But what he did in this game was exactly what he's done in the past, and that's lock in on one target, and when that target isn't there, he's either scrambling around, it's too late, he's sacked, or he's making a poor decision.
Or I don't know if he just slept on the wrong side of the bed and had a stiff neck, because it was mostly looking to the left, not to the right. So maybe just had a stiff neck. I don't know, but he doesn't look at the right field at all.
Right. No, he doesn't.
And I don't know if he when we just talked about this, maybe he's a little worried about the line since it's,
Yeah, and I mean that's obviously
Stanley there.
Exactly. That's obviously a factor. You go into this and you don't have either one of your starting tackles. Stanley is out. Now your blind side's kind of open.
Hurst.
Right side, Hurst is out, and you've got a rookie in Orlando Brown, which played a very good game, hell of a game, and I'm hoping that he has kind of cemented himself there at the right tackle position. That is, Scott and I have been saying that pretty much all year.
Yeah.
Like, where is this guy? He was
preseason blowing it up.
Right. There was no reason the only thing I'd ever heard, and I've said this a couple times, the only thing I'd had heard was that he was having trouble picking up the playbook and having trouble with some of the schemes and things of that nature. It was a difference transitioning from college to the NFL playbook. But, he didn't look like he had any problems with it there. He didn't give up a single pressure in this entire game.
Nah, he held his own with Watts, too.
Right. And, he pancaked Watts on the one. Yeah, he put him on his ass. But going back to Flacco, I think he's very much, and I talked about this with you last night, I think he's a mental quarterback in the sense that if he gets something in his head, it affects him.
He gets rattled.
Yeah, he gets rattled dramatically. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe he didn't have confidence not having Stanley and Hurst out there. And, it was just poor decision after poor decision, bad throw after bad throw. There were underthrows, there were throws behind receivers. Just, I know Flacco hasn't historically been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. He's always around like the 58 to kind of 60% mark as far as completion percentage goes. But some of these throws were just way off the mark. For instance, the one to Crabtree, in the end zone where he short-armed that one, and it landed. Yes, Crabtree maybe could have come up with it, but he had to dive to get to the ball. Like we said, he didn't go through any of his progressions. The Lamar Jackson, in the end zone, wide open play is the one that everybody's talking about because it's the one that was obviously the most glaring. Yeah. But on that play alone, not only did he have a wide open Lamar Jackson, but he also had a Willie Snead going across the middle.
But John Harbaugh said that was his fifth option. But I don't get how you have a fifth option.
Regardless of what the progression is, your progressions are going to lead you from one side of the field to the other. And just your peripheral vision would have seen Lamar Jackson standing over there waving a freaking towel by himself. Yeah. But he didn't even look to that side of the field.
Yeah, and I don't like how people just said like he didn't want to throw it to him to give him the limelight. That it'd be different if Lamar threw the ball, but catching the ball that's all on the quarterback anyways.
Right.
The thing. So
yeah,
he just didn't see it.
As much as Flacco doesn't want Lamar to succeed, and as much as Flacco wants to be the starting quarterback here, I don't think Flacco's that petty that he's intentionally not going to throw Lamar the ball if he sees him wide open because he doesn't want Lamar to catch a touchdown. Catching a touchdown doesn't put him any higher on the depth chart as a quarterback. He's lined up as a wide receiver at that point. That doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, it makes Joe look good because he saw a wide open receiver, he hit him, and he got a touchdown, and we're playing against the Steelers in a division game. But he didn't do it.
I don't think Joe cares anyways. He has his money. He has everything.
Yeah,
he took care of his unibrow, so he's good. He got his hair flowing. I don't think Joe really cares if he's here next year. I really don't. And he's playing like he doesn't care if he's not on the team next year because I think he just thinks someone's going to want me anyways. So
right.
But he doesn't look like he's worried about anything out there.
Yeah, I mean it's very true. He's always kind of been that that disconnected kind of personality where he doesn't seem into the games and he doesn't seem emotional one way or the other unless it's talking about running into Sean Payton's brother down in the mattress store.
That was the most excitement that he had.
Exactly.
Waiting after the game to say, "Hey, I bought a mattress from your brother." He was actually excited. Then compared, I'm excited to play the Steelers.
Right?
No, you want to go tell him that you bought a mattress. But Joe has always been that guy. I have always said, I like the guy. He can win games, but he's not elite at what he does, and he doesn't care. And being a quarterback, to me, you need passion. That's how you get the guys going in that huddle. You look at Drew Brees, you look at Aaron Rodgers, you put a firecracker up their ass, and they fucking play. Right. But Joe doesn't have it, and these players don't care.
Yeah,
it's so blah out there. I'm just tired of watching it. I'm tired of watching him on the sideline, just like, oh, I can't wait to get off and go to McDonald's through the drive-thru and get my chicken nuggets and my Ford F-150. All my endorsement deals. That's all he cares about, like taking care of himself, and that's what, to me, that's all he cares about. There is no passion with him at all.
Yeah, I mean it's frustrating, and like I said, I've been in Joe's corner for a very long time. This is 11 years now. Nothing's changed. No. He's still the same Joe now that he was 11 years ago when we drafted him. No. Maybe his hair looks nicer.
I tell you what, Fred, I'm pretty sure you never played like quarterback, but you play flag football or whatever with your friends. When someone gets you, you're like, hey, why don't you block? Like,
oh yeah.
If I'm Joe Flacco and I get
just the competitor in you.
Yeah, if I get pancaked, I'm gonna get up like block somebody.
Right.
I'm tired of getting my ass ran over. But now he gets up like
Me and my buddy Gene and his wife Nikki, we went to this Urban Axes place downtown this past weekend, throwing axes, and I was getting pissed off because I wasn't hitting the mark as to where I went. I'm throwing axes and drinking beer and, you know, having fun, but I'm getting pissed off because that's the competitor in me. You don't see that from Joe. You never have from Joe. I mean, does that keep him from being a productive quarterback? No, it's a personality trait, but as a quarterback in the NFL, that's a crucial position to be the motivator amongst men, right?
Yeah.
Like, he is the voice of the huddle. He is the voice of the offense. But it goes on deaf ears because he just doesn't have that fire behind him. And there is something to say about what Ray Lewis brought to this team and this organization as far as the passion. Like, we talked about this last night, how he was able to make players around him better
than what they were.
And in a lot of ways, he did that, one, with his smarts and being able to put people in positions. That's part of it. Mm-hmm. But the other part about it is getting into people's ass and holding people accountable elevates their game to another level.
Well, when, let's say, you know, someone would give up a touchdown, he would go grab that corner and get in his face and be like, you missed this, Joe. You don't see it. And I don't know who's better, Joe or Andrew Luck when they get sacked. Andrew Luck, like, oh man, that was a good sack, thank you. You know, like, you're apologizing, like, or great job, like,
right.
But Joe, I'm done. I'm done with him. I'm done with this. Head coach John Harbaugh. It needs to change. It's stale out there.
All right, well, I mean, let's get into that a little bit then. I mean, obviously, we've got the bye week coming up now, and Harbaugh made an announcement today that they're not going to practice during the bye week.
Yeah,
interesting.
The reason why he says that because they had to start a week early because of the Hall of Fame game.
I mean, I get that, but
they really the real players that play every Sunday weren't playing that game anyway. So
you think Vince Lombardi or any of the old-fashioned or old-time coaches, if your team had just lost 3 games in a row, they're going to give these guys a week's vacation?
No, well, they have feelings nowadays, Fred.
Well, look, I'm right there with you as far as the Harbaugh thing goes. It's been the same consistent, mediocre play since 2013. When he first kind of inherited, and I use that word inherited, this team back in 2008, he started off 54-26 as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
But he inherited that 54-26. He inherited the Ray Lewis, the Ed Reed, all the players that were there. Yeah, he inherited that team.
Mm-hmm.
After that Super Bowl in 2012, when he decided to blow up and get rid of the players that weren't his guys and all that kind of stuff, since 2013, they're 44-45.
Yeah.
That tells you everything that you need to know right there.
Well, I don't know if Bashotti's getting this information because I wouldn't have this guy around.
No, I mean, it's just, I know Bashotti said in his press conference before the year,
he thought about firing him last year.
He considered it. Why? What are we being hesitant? Is this how he runs his businesses? Like, does he just settle for mediocrity? Because it's not like we just all of a sudden woke up and we're a mediocre team. It's been this way since the Super Bowl.
Yeah, correct. And who's the guy on YouTube that said about John Harbaugh is going to be fired?
Yeah, so Danny, he was asking, should Harbaugh could he
Danny,
be fired?
The thing is, and Fred and I have talked, is the way that the Ravens are, they run everything to me like a family. So they're not going to fire him mid-year, which they should. They always wait to the end of the year and say, hey, it was not a good year. We're going to go a different way. They're not a team that fires a head coach, and they only had 3 since they've been around since 1996, right?
Right. They've had 3.
3 head coaches.
Yeah, they had Ted Marchibroda, Brian Billick, and now John Harbaugh.
The only thing that they fire real quick is coordinators.
Yeah, and they fire coordinators left and right. That's really been Harbaugh's a scapegoat. And I think that that's what's kind of bought him time over the years is, it's not me, it's Cam Cameron. Oh, it's not me, it's, oh, God, who was the guy that took over for Cameron when we won the Super Bowl that went to be the Lions head coach?
I forget his name.
Yeah, it's him. It's not him. It's Mark Trestman. It's not Mark Trestman. Now it's Marty Morningwig. Stop pointing the fingers at everybody else and take some ownership for the decisions that you made when you first got here. The decisions that you made to blow this team up and get rid of all these pieces that weren't your guys, that weren't quote unquote the right like locker room, politically correct locker room kind of guys. And you put your fingerprint on this. And a lot of things that I've heard too is that he's been very involved in draft day decisions, which is surprising to me. I didn't realize until the other day talking to a couple of friends of mine and different sources that that he's had a lot of influence in the draft room over recent years. Well, maybe that's part of why we're not succeeding in these drafts, because I know Ozzy's on his way out. Eric's kind of taken over. How much has Eric kind of already been involved in the mix? I mean, obviously he's been involved, but how much, who gets the final say on the picks? Was it Ozzy? Was it Eric? How much change is really going to come when Eric takes over? But the whole pass that Ozzy got for the success he had early on in his career as a GM has faded for me.
Oh, yeah.
He's, thank you for what you did. You had a hell of a run as a GM, but the game has passed you by. And these draft picks that you've been picking over these past few years have just not panned out.
Well, and they always say we want to get the best available player, but we passed up on so many good wide receivers the last 3-4 years. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. And then this year, you've got an aging safety in Eric Weddle. You've got another box safety in Tony Jefferson who can't cover. And you've got the pick of the litter in safeties, Derwin James, sitting there. And you trade back to get a tight end.
Yeah, definitely we love tight ends, and we only use them that much this year. So
it's
I mean, it's
frustrating.
We got like 4 or 5 tight ends on our roster.
Yeah, 4. We got, all right, so we got Hurst,
Williams.
Max Williams, we got Boyle, and Andrews. Well,
I never seen a team that had so many tight ends and don't even use them.
Right. I mean, I will say Andrews has kind of.
Oh, he's blossomed over.
Yeah, he's outperformed my expectations so far. I do like what I see in Andrews, and I think he could be a good tight end. We haven't seen enough of Hayden Hurst, your first round pick, to make any kind of decision on him yet. But it starts at the top for me. It's a trickle down effect. Bisciotti not making the decision to let Harbaugh go years ago, that's a huge problem.
I thought last year would have been.
Yeah, last year to me was like the final straw. You lose that game to Cincinnati in the last couple of minutes there, or the last minute.
Yeah.
And you don't get in the playoffs because of that. That should have been it.
53 seconds left.
That should have been it right then and there, but it wasn't.
Nah.
He gives him another shot. And what are we doing? Here we are.
It's the same thing.
4-5.
And coming off the bye, we got the Bengals. It's not going to be any
walking
apart.
No, I mean, you looking at the remaining, schedule from here on out.
Yeah, I got it right here. But I tell you what.
There's no way this team gets to the playoffs.
No, I think even Oakland's going to give us the trouble because that's who the Ravens are. We always struggle against teams that we should be killing them.
Right. Yeah, they play down to their competition or its lack of being prepared, however you want to chalk that up. It's frustrating, man. I can't see this team now with this loss to the Steelers getting any better through this bye week by giving them a week's vacation after you just had a 3 game. You had your asses handed to you in 3 games. And now you're getting a week's vacation to go take on the Bengals, who whooped your ass at their house, who always give you problems here at M&T Bank. Always.
Well, I just thought they've been on vacation for 3 weeks now, so I thought it would been plenty.
Right, yeah. I feel like they've been gone a little too long already.
Might as well give them a coupon at the nail salon or masseuse or whatever.
It's frustrating, man. It's
yeah.
You know, I try to hold on to faith. I'm a diehard fan. You know, I'll.
You're out there every Sunday.
I'm out there every Sunday. I do this podcast because I love them. You know, I still support my team, but you can't help but be frustrated right now. Even the most homer of homer fans right now have to be frustrated.
Well, and I have to say, I was at home. I wasn't at the game, but you know. Normally you can hear some Steelers in there, but I hear a lot of the Ravens, and I looked on the stat. I think the stadium could hold 71,000 and some change, and I think the capacity was 70, so it was almost their capacity. So
yeah, I mean, there were definitely noticeably more fans there for this game than there were for the previous games this year. And that's just typical of a Ravens-Steelers matchup that happens. There were a decent amount of Steeler fans there. There were a lot of those ugly-ass terrible towels flying around that stadium.
Well, that's for you to give to the Ravens to, you know, wipe their tears away.
Pretty much. It's frustrating. It's the same problems year in and year out with this team. And albeit knowing the Ravens and the way that they operate, I do not think that they will make any changes with John Harbaugh mid-season.
No, they're not. They're not that. They're, like I said, they're like a family.
It doesn't benefit them in any way. Even if you're a realist, and as much as we're frustrated and as much as most of us probably want to see Harbaugh go,
yeah, who are you gonna put there?
Who are you gonna put there? Are you gonna put Marty in charge? That guy can't talk his way out of a wet paper bag. You don't want him being the leader of your football team. Are you going to put Wink in that position? I mean, he could probably do it because he's a player's coach and the players seem to like Wink, but he's not the long-term answer. And there's no long-term answer that's out there right now that you could bring in tomorrow and make this team a playoff team tomorrow.
No, but next guy's got to be an offensive-minded coach.
And I agree with you there. And that's kind of where I'm leading to is that I think this is the end. At least I hope. I hope Steve.
It's the end of an era for Ozzie and for John and Joe. And a lot of these players are going to be gone at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
But you know what the worst is? And I'm glad I'm sitting on the couch on Sunday because I can't stand, especially being up top, supposed to be winning at these games at home. And when you lose, you have to walk down and hear these Steelers fans.
Oh, I know.
And it's just like you're in our house and you're running your mouth just like that. And I'm already fired up. Like,
right.
I just can't stand that. That's one of the things that I hate going to games. And that one or two fans got to run their mouth. Like,
yeah. That's kind of typical, especially of Steeler fans.
Oh, yeah.
Steeler fans, they'll let you have it. That's part of the rivalry, I think, that just kind of comes with the games and the arrogance of their fans and that kind of thing. Actually, one of the worst games that I've ever gone to a few years, or was it? No, it was last year when we played against the Raiders, man. We were around a rowdy, drunk group of Raider fans, and these guys let us have it. I mean, let the entire section have it once we lost that game last year. So it's that's kind of typical of certain fan bases, the way that they react to that kind of stuff. It was a hard walk back to the car.
Yeah, because you should be winning these games.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely should. Scott, I see you you kind of joined us back here on the show. I don't know if you've been listening in. You got any comments here before we transition away from the Steelers game? Look, we couldn't really hear much of your audio from earlier, so I really don't know a whole lot of what you said. It was really, really choppy.
That's all right. Can you hear me clean now at least?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
There you go. I went the extra mile here. I'm actually in our minivan that we rented because everybody is asleep in our, in our piece. So I'm sitting in the back. You're catching the lighting out of the lights from the minivan. But no, I just ran to Walmart. I haven't been able to watch what you guys are doing. I just ran to Walmart and grabbed a connector because there was a connector that my dumb butt forgot at home. So I grabbed the connector to be able to do it on my phone because I knew I could get a stronger signal out of the phone to be able to get on with you guys. So, I mean, long story short of what I was saying earlier before it kind of cut out, you guys probably hit on a lot of it. The big things for me, we said these were two must-win games. They had to win against the Steelers. They had to win against Cincy again, and you've already lost and failed on that front because you lost one of two. Division-wise, it puts it somewhat out of contention for the Ravens. As bad as this division has been, it still puts it somewhat out of contention. So I think the big thing for me is Harbaugh's on the hot seat. As much as people are, probably going to disagree with me, if you disagree that Harbaugh's not on the hot seat, you don't understand what has been happening with the Ravens over the past several years. It is not just a one-time thing. This has been a problem. His play calling, no matter what everybody says between Wink and Jesus, why am I Marty Morningwink? They have to run the play calls between John's ears. John can change them if he wants. So all of it needs to be adjusted. And the other thing I was kind of saying, I think you probably didn't hear much of, and I don't know whether you guys covered it fully or not, was the CJ Mosley situation, Fred, that you and I have continuously harped on. It happened again. It's at what point are you going to put Kenny Young back in coverage and put CJ Mosley up on the line and spy the quarterback? Like, at what point are you going to do that? It's not happening. It continues not to happen. It continues to be a problem.
Yeah, you basically gave us a Cliff Notes version of everything that we had just talked about for like the last 30 minutes. I mean, you're right on the same page with everything that we're saying. I guess the big topic that we're debating right now is the Harbaugh situation. It's the front office situation. It's the Bisciotti situation. It's everything that kind of starts from the top down. Like I said a couple of minutes ago, and I'll catch you up real quick. Bisciotti not pulling the trigger to get rid of Harbaugh earlier has been an issue. The draft situation has been an issue, whether you want to put that on Ozzie, whether you want to put that on Eric, whether you want to put that on both of them, whether you want to put that on Harbaugh because Harbaugh has some influence in the draft room. It starts with all that. When you fail at the draft, what that does is that makes you have to go out and spend money on free agents where you missed in the draft, which puts you tighter against the cap. And then the Ravens have a problem with overspending on players, which makes you even tighter against the cap. And it creates it's a snowball effect. And that's the problem, is it's been from the top down, this trickle-down effect, and it's led to a mediocre product on the field day in and day out.
It's a JV.
You're absolutely right.
JV
it continues.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's absolutely a JV football team. It continues to be a team. Look, do they have their moments? Absolutely. There are some great plays that we've seen, but the past 2 weeks especially, we have seen the playbook get written on how to beat the Ravens' #1 defense that was #1 just 3 weeks ago. And we've seen the playbook written, and we've seen it executed. That's the big thing. And Cincy, they did it once. If you don't think they're going to do it again, Wink has to step up and make a change. Because if he doesn't and he gets run over, in my opinion, it starts to become not just John that's on the hot seat. It's Wink. We're back to the same old defense getting burned all the time. So it's just going to depend on what happens. Cincy's going to play a huge role in how quickly everything goes down. Not if at this point. It is going to play a role in how quickly it goes down. Remember, this stuff is making national headlines and national media on Harbaugh being on the hot seat. And I know that there's people out there that disagree. Fred, you and I know a few people that absolutely disagree and are getting on Ravens fans that are doing that. But I completely think that if you don't think that Harbaugh's on the hot seat, you do not understand the details of this team and what's been happening. So that's all I got to say on that.
Well, Scott, what I wanted to say about Mosley, we talked about it. The Ravens with Mosley got burned by almost two 40-year-old men to a younger guy. You got burned by Ben Watson, and you got burned by Greg Olsen. Come on, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can't be getting burned by those guys. I 100% agree. That's a great point, James. You can't be getting burned by. I mean, granted, they are veterans that are very crafty. There's a reason that they're still in this league, but they're not in the league for their speed at this point. They're in the league for their toughness. They're in the league for the fact that they can get dirty. But you shouldn't be. I agree with you 100%. You shouldn't be getting beat out by 35 and 40-year-olds.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's before we lose your connection, Scott, because I want your take on the next topic. We're going to skip over some stuff and go straight into some Terps football. I'm going to do a quick recap. So Terps lose at home to Michigan State 24-3. Big loss. I mean, this was a game that they weren't expected to win by any stretch of the imagination, but you looked at the remaining portion of the schedule. They need that one extra win to get the 6 and become bowl eligible, and you thought if they're going to pull a win off, you're at home against an unranked Michigan State team who has some question marks at quarterback, but unfortunately they weren't able to pull this one off. There was a lot of things that went wrong in this game. Obviously, weather played an effect in this game with the wind being as crazy as it was. Neither team was able to get anything going through the air, and which, Maryland is already kind of a one-dimensional team, and you take that completely out of the picture with the passing game, and it's real easy to stack the box and stop this team.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I'm gonna bounce off the Ravens conversation here that we've had. One of the things that is lacked, and this is not just the Terps, but one of the things that I feel really lacks in college is your tight end play. The across the middle, there's not a lot of teams that can do it. Ohio State is one of the biggest teams that can do it with some of their tight ends. Their wide receivers aren't afraid to come across the middle either with the short 5-yard passes. In college, it's either you run a flea flicker, you're running the ball, or you're throwing it deep. That's college football. It has always been college football. What's that?
Or the option.
Or the option, yeah, absolutely. But it's not very dynamic. You can, as soon as you see the lineup on the play and how the guys are lined up at the line of scrimmage, you can pretty well take a guess, 9 times out of 10 be right of what the play is going to be, or at least pretty damn close. So for me, that's one thing that has lacked. And a game like this, that's one thing that you need, is you can't have your running backs be so predictable, because you can't throw the ball. And like you said, weather did play a big role. I didn't get the chance to actually watch it. I was actually able to catch some highlights once we landed, because I was actually flying on Saturday. But when I did see it, I saw a lot of the highlights showing a lot of the same thing. Obviously, you couldn't go deep with the ball because the wind was playing a huge factor. But the running game was just so predictable. They weren't able to move the ball as well as they have in the past. And that just shows you that when you take away one portion of a game for both teams, in a sense, while Michigan did get a little bit more going on offense, it was still a big effort that just got stopped by Michigan's defense continuously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going into this game, obviously there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of things going on at the University of Maryland, a lot of changes, a lot of emotional things for the team to have to deal with. So there was the battle of trying to be mentally strong going into this game. You've put a pretty decent season together considering all the things that you've had to deal with at 5-3 going into this game. Then you've got the weather factor going into this, like we said, that made them kind of one-dimensional. But there were situations in this game with turnovers that could have changed the outcome of this game. I mean, Byron Cowart, he had the huge interception return with 11 minutes to go, and then fumbles the ball at the goal line, and it's recovered in the end zone by Michigan State. The very next play, Hayward runs the ball for 80 yards and scores a touchdown.
That's crazy.
That's a 14-point swing right there that obviously affected the outcome big time in this game. Changes, if Maryland scores there, the momentum shifts to their side. They're, and maybe they can pull this out with 11 minutes left to go in the game, but unfortunately they weren't able to.
Yeah, no, it continues to be a problem, when you take away one portion of a game. But I think with turnovers, it's also that's the game of college football. I hate to say it that way, but I mean it's the truth. That's the game of college football. Turnovers play a huge role. These are still guys that are, half of them still have high school mentality. They're still playing like their high school coach would, and it takes time to get them to understand, what it's going to take to win in college and then eventually win in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you get a chance to watch this game at all, James? No.
Well, I knew what the outcome was going to be, and I didn't want to see anything about the students and all the stuff that's been going on with the head coach. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to get your guys' opinion on. So we'll kind of move on really
This
quickly.
is a mistake,
So
Fred. I'm going to go off on this.
Is there really this week really is their last realistic shot at becoming bowl eligible. They got a toss-up game against Indiana. They are on the road in Indiana. Indiana's favored by 2.5. The Hoosiers actually have a pretty well-balanced offense. They've got a good passing game. They've got a decent running game. Defensively, the Terps play the pass well, so they're going to have to step up against the run in this game. And again, offensively, they got to get away from being so one-dimensional. Kasim Hill's got to get more involved in the game, and you got to see the offense making some plays through the air versus just on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I couldn't say it better, Fred. The one thing I will tell you, though.
All right, so
real quick, is when it comes to Maryland, I want to get your guys' quick opinion on this. Whole situation after our last show was the announcement was made that DJ Durkin was going to come back per request of the Board of Regents. Wallace Lowe, made the announcement and also announced his retirement. I guess it was technically less than 36 hours later, Durkin's fired. How stupid do you have to be to recognize that move made you look worse as a college? Because now you're saying, oh, well, we made a decision and we're going to stick with it. Oh, but everybody doesn't like that decision? Okay, let's change it. Let's do it to what everybody wants. It's absolutely ridiculous. I've had conversations. I have multiple people that I work with that graduated at different levels. I have people that work for me that graduated just last year and the year before. I've got two of my bosses that graduated 10 and 12 years ago. And so for all of them, they hate this. It's such a big thing. And I think we can't not talk about it real quick because it was so huge that it made national media. They're getting questioned. I don't know if either of you heard Tim Tebow rant about it. He didn't agree with the decision, but he basically just said that same thing. He went off and was saying that, look, you look worse now because you made your decision and then you realized that everybody didn't like your decision, so you said, okay, we're going to change it because everybody doesn't like it. So you look 10 times worse. And some people are putting this on Wallace Lowe. I know he's the president, but he does have to answer to the Board of Regents. It's the Board of Regents' fault. They never should have said that their recommendation was to keep Durkin in the first place, knowing that was going to be the kickback from the students, from the media, from everybody, saying, look what happened. A guy died on this guy's watch. You need to do something about it. And it's crazy that it had to get to that point, but I figure we at least have to talk about it real quick, and get each of your guys' opinion on it and how you feel that got handled, right after our last show, them turning around and changing the decision back.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be the next thing that I brought up, obviously, but Here's my kind of take on it. I agree with 90% of everything that you said, and I'm right on the same part. I mean, kind of the whole progression of things was handled terribly. And it starts, like you said, with the Board of Regents. But the president, Dr. Lowe, ultimately had the decision whether he reinstates Durkin or not. Yes, the Regents made the recommendation, but it's not the Regents' ultimate decision, yes or no. So for Lowe to, it's not like he got the recommendation and then ran to the microphone and was like, yeah, Durkin's our guy and we're going to back him and all that. He had time to sit back and really think about what was in the right interest of this university, what was in the best interest for the current players, what's in the best interest for the future growth of this program, and what's in the best interest of, let's face it, the deceased parents.
Correct.
Like, there's so many things, there's so many different aspects that this affects. And how could he have thought that the right decision, without before the backlash from the alumni, before the backlash from the former players, current players, the politicians, all that stuff, how could he have thought that this was going to go over well with anybody?
Correct.
With anybody.
You don't think that his retirement though had something?
It doesn't make any sense to me.
You don't think his retirement had something to do with that? You know, the fact that the guy makes this announcement, which I feel, I mean, from the people that I talked to that have went to Maryland, and two of them have actually talked to Wallace Lowe when they were in school and had conversations, legitimate, you know, not just shooting the shit. You know, legitimate conversations about things on campus, about different things. And they said that the decision didn't seem to be coming from him. And to announce your retirement, you know, I feel maybe it's me being conspiracy theorist here, but I think it plays a role that you have to say, well, wait a second, his retirement announcement has to have something to do with this. Yes, is this the case? But is it he's doing this because it was, if you don't reinstate Durkin, we expect your immediate resignation? And he said, I'll reinstate Durkin, but I'm not staying around for next year. That's what I look at it. That's the way that I read it, and I feel like that's the way a lot of the media read it. Look, I agree with you. It definitely is not the greatest scenario. I think he did have time to do it, and it is ultimately his decision. But you know, he's also got to look out for his family and everything. Obviously, he can probably turn around and go somewhere else pretty easily. He's a smart guy, knows what the heck he's doing. But at the same time, I just think you have to recognize there's that small, minute role that we can't forget about, and that's that he did announce his retirement immediately at the same press conference. You're telling me those two things aren't related? I just don't see it.
Well, if I get that he was going to retire, but he said he was going to retire after the year. I think if you really wanted to set a message, you would have retired after that press conference. But I just don't get how Maryland got this wrong. Like,
right
from the year from Penn State, and then even with the stuff going on with Michigan State, I don't even know how Michigan State still has a coach for basketball and football there with all this stuff going on. But the thing that gets me is, how does Maryland get this wrong? And I have heard that apparently Maryland's broke. I'm not talking about they're going to lock up doors and all that, but from paying out the old head coach and some other things, that Maryland is broke. And I thought maybe we can, let sweep under the rug and just give him the job. But they had all the opportunity to fire him and maybe not pay him his full contract. But by telling him you're reinstated, you have your job, now you got to pay them. But then the talk was with his father saying talk about another lawsuit. Then they're like, well, we messed up, we'll just fire him. And you just make yourself look like an idiot. And I just love Maryland. Like, when they're in the ACC, ever since they went to the Big Ten, I think has ruined Maryland, period. So that's my take. They got it wrong. and that's just my opinion on it.
Well, the one thing that I'll say with that too, and I agree with a lot of what you said there, James. There's a problem with the way this entire situation was handled, just from a simplistic standpoint. If you just think simply, right, you're going to have to pay this guy's contract out one way or the other. Whether that's if you bring him back or whether you can him. You're going to have to pay his money regardless.
Unless it was found that he was part of it.
Right. Well, okay, that might be one way out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But at the end of the day, the whole broke thing versus not being broke thing, you're going to have to pay that contract, worst case scenario, if you keep him or if you get out of it. If you can him, right?
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you're going to have to pay the contract regardless. Matt Canada has done a hell of a job stepping in and taking over in this terrible situation, in a broken atmosphere, broken situation. He's done a really good job, and he's kept the competitive team
to get 5 wins out there.
To get 5 wins out of them, dealing with all the, the controversy and everything else. Beyond that, take it a step further. How can you expect the players, the friends, the brothers of the fallen player, Jordan McNair, to accept Durkin back into that locker room when you look at the big picture of what happened there, regardless if he was the trainer or not, he oversees that. These kids aren't idiots. They know that he had a part in this. How can you ever think that locker room is going to be open arms to welcoming Durkin back in to a situation where you just cost one of their brothers their life?
I honestly think Durkin probably thought he wasn't going to be the head coach at all. He was just collecting his paycheck. But when he got announced that he had his job, I bet he was just shocked.
I mean, he had to have been. As much as everybody else was shocked, I can't imagine that he was thinking the entire time that he was going to keep his job. There's no way.
No, there's no way
Scott,
he thought.
What do you got to say?
There's no way he thought he had his job back. He had a guy die on his watch. That is the undisputable, irrefutable fact of this whole situation. A guy died on his watch. Now there's this back and forth stuff you and I talked about of, oh well, who did the athletic guys report to? Da, da, da. He's your football player. You are the one that is responsible for him.
Right.
Fred, you said it last week. You walked into his parents' home and told his parents, I will take care of your son. And you didn't. So you didn't think you had your job. If you thought you had your job, you were delusional. Because any other coach in any other city, he would have been fired immediately. It wouldn't have been a question. It would have been, sorry, dude, a guy died on your watch, whether you were directly responsible or not. You oversaw that practice, and it ultimately comes down to you. So he definitely had to have thought that he was fired. I thought James brought up a really great point with the Big Ten. Since we moved to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten in general is in kind of, I don't want to say shambles, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the Big Ten that's becoming a problem. I think overall, and this is what I've said before about the NCAA needs to be regulated a little bit more than what they are, because they're supposed to be their own self-regulation. Where was the NCAA in all of this with Durkin, with the whole Jordan McNair situation, everything? Where was the NCAA? My thoughts are, again, conspiracy theorists. What have you heard about a federal investigation? You haven't heard anything about who's involved. Now, maybe there was.
Right.
But at the same time, what's the NCAA's job? Keeping the feds out of it. That's what their job is. They're saying, we're handling this internally. There was no one directly responsible. Here's all the information that we've gathered. Here you go. That's what they did. And again, it's probably me being conspiracy guy, and saying this is what's happening. But I just feel that there's so much going on to not at least acknowledge that there's some weird stuff that's been happening in all of these different towns. especially in Maryland, with a death. Fred, you could probably recall the player. You guys can probably see some of the fireworks going off in the background here. But as far as this goes, there was a player that was a lineman for Maryland that posted on Twitter this past week during the session, basically blasting the Board of Regents in Wallace Lowe for the original decision. And it goes right into what you said, Fred, about these guys are not – you thought they were going to accept him back, especially your linemen. There was no way, senior or freshman, sophomore or junior, that any one of those linemen was going to accept Durkin back as their head coach. And the proof was in the pudding when they met with the team saying that this was the decision that was being made. As we said last week, half of the team, and I confirmed this week it was over half. There were only about 10 or 12 guys left in the locker room from what I've been told, and that has created more issues within the locker room. So supposedly there's also have been fights since then about guys who were big Durkin guys. Apparently they loved him, they thought he was great, they didn't think he was at fault, but it has created such an issue that he needed to go. Because even if you bring him back, even if he is that head coach, if most of your team has no respect for this guy, it's going to create even more division and more frustration. And then you're going to see a team that's come out with 5 wins not touch a win for at least another year. So it's going to be tough to see.
Yeah, and it completely, I mean, like we said last week, and like I said to you last night, you bring Durkin back in, and how can you expect to recruit players and go in, like we said, go into somebody's house and say, I've got the best interest for your kid in mind, and yet, we can point to this situation and just show how careless the university and Durkin and his regime was in the entire situation. So this was just a piss poor decision from the get-go. The whole entire thing. The fact that they did this entire suspension and he was put on hold to make the decision, it should have been right then and there. He should have been let go. It should have never had to gone through this entire investigation process. Regardless of the culture of what was going on and everything outside of it, just this one incident in itself, the blatant disregard for care for an athlete should have been enough to get this guy fired.
Correct. And I think the only way that Durkee could have stayed if he was the head coach during Maryland being in the ACC, because the basketball team took that pressure off, because you wouldn't need that much recruiting for football in the ACC. But being a Big Ten, trying to compete with Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, trying to get recruits, it's not going to happen, him being the head coach, because now you're in the Big Ten, you're trying to push the football. But the only way that he could have stayed, maybe if this happened maybe 20 years ago and being in the ACC, because back then it was all about Maryland basketball. But now it's Big Ten, big money, big football. That's it.
Yeah, and that's
a great point, James.
That's all the NCAA is about. It's their bottom dollar. I mean, that's sadly, that's what it is. It's always about money for the NCAA, and that's a whole other topic. That's something that we could talk about for hours, about the money and the corruptness of the NCAA, and that's something that we'll probably break down in a future episode. Oh, yeah, it absolutely is.
College sports is just the mafia of the era now. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, look, before we let you go, anything you got left to say before we sign off?
Sorry for all the technical issues. If I would have had my connector, it wouldn't have been a problem. The connection here at the place that I'm staying at on Wi-Fi just isn't that great. So like I said, I'm doing this from the phone. I appreciate all the listeners out there sticking with us through this. James, huge thank you for you being in studio. I know you've been in the studio. What do you think now? I got to get your thoughts. What do you think? How did you think your first time on the show went?
I think pretty well, but you're on Flow Rider, so you're on vacation time, so you forget some things.
Yeah, I'm allowed to forget one or two things here and there. It's all right. But yeah, huge thank you to you guys. Huge thank you to everybody.
You had Mickey Mouse on your mind.
I did. We were at Disney today, so I was wearing my Birdland BS gear. I sent Fred a picture. We'll be posting it on social media later. And actually, not tomorrow, but Wednesday, we're going to be at Magic Kingdom. And get this, unprompted, didn't even need to do it. My wife packed her Birdland BS shirt for us going to Magic Kingdom. So we're going to get a family picture with 2 Birdland BS shirts in there. So that'll be posted. We'll get that. We'll get that up there.
With Mickey Mouse.
I'm gonna try. Oh yeah. Well, I got one with Mickey and Minnie today, and I got one with Goofy today. We're gonna try and get one with all of us. Obviously, I don't have a little one or a little shirt for Wyatt, my son, but we're gonna try and get it on there with a bunch of different characters. So we'll have it out there. We'll get it up later this week for you guys. So. Huge thank you. Sorry again for the technical difficulties, but great show, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you signing in, man. Enjoy your vacation, and I'll be talking to you soon here, brother.
Stick on till the end. You guys go.
All right. So, all right, we didn't get into our weekly predictions here. So let's get back and do our primetime predictions. Obviously, last week was kind of mixed bag results for the three of us. All three of us had a rough kind of week. Scott and I went with the Ravens. Ryan was the only ones that was leaning on the Steelers here, so Ryan gets the win on the Ravens-Steelers game. Thursday night football, the Raiders at 49ers got to see a new quarterback take over the helm there in San Fran and Mullins, and man, that kid lit it up.
He did, and especially his last name being Mullins. You would think he would have a Mullen.
Right. Yeah, that kid lit it up. Raiders are an absolute mess. Yeah. But Ryan, I don't know why he took the Raiders on this. As smart as he was with the Steelers pick, he was not smart here by taking the Raiders. So that one goes to Scott and I there. Sunday night was, I guess, the most anticipated primetime game of the week, with the Packers at 3-3-1 going in to take on the 6-2 Patriots. I was the only one here on the Patriots. I had the Patriots 30-27. Scott and Ryan were on the Packers side there after the Packers had a good stretch run there for a few weeks. But Patriots pulled that one out 31-17. Monday Night Football last night, debacle that it was with the Titans at the Cowboys.
Cowboys looked good.
Yeah, first. Cowboys came out of the gate strong, looking like they were going to, take this game over, but then a couple of costly turnovers and the missed field goal, and then just completely shutting down in the second half. Cowboys end up losing this game 28-14 to the Titans. All three of us were on the Cowboys on this one, so none of us got the win there. This week, obviously the Ravens have a bye, so we don't have any predictions going into that. Thursday night football, we've got the 6-2 Panthers going into Heinz Field to take on the Steelers, who are 5-2-1, riding both of these teams are hot right now.
It's going to be a good game compared to last week.
Absolutely is going to be a good game. James, how do you see this one shaking out?
I have the Panthers winning 27-17. I just think that the Panthers, it's going to be tough, that division down there.
Yeah.
Between Atlanta,
New
the
Orleans.
Saints, and Carolina, they're all looking good. Maybe 2's going to come out of there.
Yeah, could be 2, possibly even 3, as far as wild cards.
What could happen is one of these teams are not going to make it, or maybe all 3 of them should make it, but a team that's 8-8 record getting in because of a division.
Yeah, that could happen too, and that's we'll see, because let's see. Yeah, now I don't know if there's really that many teams that because you've got the Rams running away with the West. You've got, I guess the Central would be the one.
I'm just talking in general. Like, if you have like a team, even the AFC, that gets in there with an 8-8 record.
Oh, yeah, overall.
You have a 10-6 or a 12-4
that doesn't get in.
And don't get in.
Yeah. I feel like the playoff system in the NFL, it's way behind the times as far as the structure of that. I think that's something that needs to be restructured.
Well, they're not even like, because you're not really in the real conference anyways.
Right. Right. Conference doesn't really even mean anything anymore.
Nah, it's just a name.
Right. I've got the Steelers actually winning this 28-24 in a very close game. I think this will come down to whoever has the ball last in this game. I like Big Ben at home. I think what Norv Turner's done down there in Carolina for that offense has really turned the tide for Cam Newton and his career, and we're starting to see Christian McCaffrey getting more and more involved in the offense.
DJ Moore, too.
Yeah, and DJ Moore, out of University of Maryland, that you're starting to see Cam utilize his weapons more and more, and that offense is starting to really, really click.
And he still has his legs.
Yeah. Scott's got Panthers winning this game 32-28. Sunday Night Football's got those Cowboys again going into Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Eagles starting to maybe figure some things out there. That's a team that struggled out of the gates that everybody kind of expected to do well after winning the Super Bowl. They got the new weapon in Golden Tate. I kind of expected them to make a move, but I thought it would have been more from a running back perspective. Thought maybe LaShawn McCoy might end up there. Or
well, they're not like the Ravens. They're not going to overpay for a guy.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But they did. They went after their guy in Golden Tate, and they got him. And I think it's a good complementary piece. Yeah. He's still a hell of a productive receiver at 30 years old.
He's got good hands.
He's got really, really reliable hands. Very good clutch receiver. I do have the Eagles winning this in a runaway. I've got them winning 30-17. How do you see this playing out?
I have the Eagles running away 30-13.
Okay. All right. So you're right there with us. Ryan also has this 27-17. Scott, I don't know what the hell. I don't know if you wrote Cowboys by mistake. I don't know what's going on there, but you got the Cowboys.
He's on vacation, but I swear if he would caught the game last night, I think he would be changing this.
Yeah, I guess, but I'm going with it because that's what he sent me. He got the Cowboys winning 24-17. Monday Night Football, and I can't believe this game wasn't pushed out or changed or something, but you got the 1-7 Giants, Scott's second favorite team, going into San Francisco to take on the San Francisco 49ers at 2-7. This game would have been totally unappealing had it not been for this new rookie quarterback coming in Mullins. Well, it was kind of exciting to watch him last week, so I'm a little excited to watch it.
Well, I think if it wasn't for like the weapons that Giants have, I think it'd be pretty close with the Raiders game.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I've got the 49ers winning this. I think it'll be close. I mean, I can't say that the Giants aren't going to score any points because Eli's awful, because they do have Saquon Barkley, and we've talked about him in the past. Like I believe that Saquon Barkley is one of the best backs in this game, and if you put a line around him, he would prove that. So I think they'll keep this close, but I do see the 49ers winning 23-20. How do you got this one?
I have the 49ers winning 24-17.
All right. Yeah, it looks like we're all on the same page here, as Ryan's got the 49ers winning 24-20. 1 point different from mine. And Scott also has the 49ers winning 30-17. All right, man. That's pretty much a wrap on this week's episode. Again, apologize for the technical difficulties with Scott out there in Florida, but we'll try to work that out a little bit better for next week. Appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in as always. Sorry for all the Facebook comments and whatnot out there. I wasn't able to keep up on it this week. I got a lot I'm trying to run here. If my brain was a little scattered, I apologize for that. Be sure to check us out on the web at birdlandbs.com, where you can check out all of our episode and learn a little bit about Scott and I and Ryan. Get some Birdland BS gear to help support us and help show your pride and how much you love the show. Also, check us out on birdlandsports.com. It's a website full of a bunch of different shows like ours and a bunch of different bloggers, some of the best in the Baltimore area. So if you're looking for more content, good site to check out. Be sure to follow us on social media. Check us out on Twitter at BirdlandBS. You can follow me at FredBLBS. You can follow Scott at ScottBLBS. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Everything is Birdland BS. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and share to be a part of Birdland BS Nation. If you got anything you want us to talk about, be sure to use the hashtag Birdland BS Nation, and we'll get your question in on the show for upcoming episodes. As always, be sure to check out the audio podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or any podcast app of choice. Thanks for tuning in. As always, for Scott in Florida, for our special guest, James, I'm Fred. We'll see you guys.
See ya.